It is my great honor to address the Human Rights Council on behalf of Montenegro in the capacity of its newly elected member state. I would particularly like to pay my tribute to the UN High Commissioner, Madam Pillay, and commend her and her staff's outstanding efforts and results in leading the office, which has a great and demanding task of promoting and protecting human rights and freedoms worldwide. Being aware of the importance and dedication with which you conduct your work, we express our full support to the annual report of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, which should serve as strong and clear guidelines for an adequate joint response to the forthcoming challenges in human rights protection. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to recognise challenges that all of us are facing to a greater or lesser extent and to give our support to the United Nations. I believe that we have delegated our commitments to this great organisation to fight for causes that we individually are not able to deal with as effectively. What we need to do is to set personal example. That is our great contribution, not just for the reason of having our own backyard settled, but because we will protect the principles we are fighting for globally. Human rights represent one of the greatest accomplishments of humanity. That is why we have additional responsibility in making human rights a human reality. That is also why we have to fight for each and every human being, to protect its given rights and liberties, to create societies that will bring out the best in us. We have witnessed the last year has continued to be marked by an increased number of human rights violations. Should we be discouraged? No, quite the opposite. They should give us an additional impetus to make full use of capacities in order to do the right thing and protect human rights. We must step up our efforts to support people of some countries as they build their own democratic future. The path is challenging, and every country takes its own path. Though progress will sometimes be slow, the future must see the broadening of human rights throughout the world. We share great concerns, particularly about the situation in Syria and also other troubled countries, and fully support all the resolutions and decisions made by the Security Council and the Human Rights Council in that regard. Driven by the examples from the recent history of the Balkans, we have learned that immediate stop of violence by all sides in the affected countries and an adequate response of the international community without distinction of any kind is necessary. That is what Montenegro urges for, though aware that this cannot be resolved in one stroke. And we in the United Nations must help these countries to take the right path. We strongly believe that irrespective of the political environment and historic and economic moment, no act of violence may be justified under any circumstances. Complex financial and economic crisis has affected the human rights everywhere. Such environment should oblige us to work harder and with stronger instruments aimed at protecting human rights. Therefore, efforts and resources should be maximised in order to preserve or improve living standards and create required conditions for full exercise of social and economic rights, including the right to development. To that end, Montenegro strongly advocates for the post-2015 development agenda based on human rights with full incorporation of gender perspective. Mr. President, the Human Rights Council undoubtedly has become an important venue for addressing international crisis and finding global solutions to tough challenges as they unfold. Even though further enhancement of the credibility and effectiveness of the multilateral human rights system is priority of any Human Rights Council member state, I would like to emphasise once again that Montenegro will maximise its efforts in this respect. As human rights are one of the fundamental pillars of the United Nations system, the government of Montenegro recognises the necessity of supporting the Council in fulfilling its mandate. Since universal periodic review should be an efficient instrument for a transparent and objective assessment of the human rights situation in each UN member state, we oblige ourselves to contribute to this accomplishment. These activities we cannot and do not implement individually. Therefore, involvement and cooperation of all stakeholders, Human Rights Council, special prosecutors, special procedure, NGOs, other state and non-state actors will be of utmost importance. The UPR process in case of Montenegro is complementary with EU integration process. It clearly demonstrates the challenges and obligations that we should undertake. By responding to these challenges, we will strengthen the system of protection and exercising of human rights, and at the same time achieve and implement the highest standards of the international human rights law. At this point, I'd like to stress that Montenegro has extended a standing invitation to all thematic special procedures. By doing so, we demonstrate our commitment to cooperate and respect the highest standard of protection, and in that regard, we expect that all Member States will follow the same path. Ladies and gentlemen, opportunity to act as a member of Human Rights Council is not just a way to participate and adequately react to human rights violations worldwide. It is also a challenge and commitment to further improvement of respect for human rights within one's own state. The decision of Montenegro to seek membership and work within the UN Human Rights Council framework is a clear example of this commitment. The experience of being a Human Rights Council member state shows us that we have partners all over the world who share our human rights priorities and values. Regaining independence of Montenegro undoubtedly underlines the necessity to undertake comprehensive reforms, develop institutions and build institutional capacity. Effective implementation of international human rights instruments, monitoring and fulfilling the recommendations of UN treaty bodies are the priorities of our work on improving and strengthening the system of human rights protection. Progress in development of a stable legislative and institutional system in Montenegro is widely recognized. Last year's decision of the European Council to start accession negotiations with Montenegro represents a clear confirmation that processes develop in the right manner. Achieved results should encourage, but at the same time oblige us to do better and persist in our efforts to fully implement legislative framework. I would like to emphasize at this occasion that Montenegro will remain committed to the highest values of democracy and principles proclaimed in the UN Charter, Universal Declaration and international law documents in the field of human rights. Mr. President, encouragement of the culture of peace, promotion of the respect for human rights, development of tolerance and solidarity, and strengthening peace and security require provision of strong support to the UN Human Rights Council and full cooperation of Member States. In that context, the role of civil society is unquestionable. We respect full cooperation of civil society organizations in Montenegro that build their credibility through participation in important human rights projects. That credibility is built on the standards of international non-governmental organizations that have important consultative role and significantly contribute to the work of the UN and its bodies. I believe that through the wide internal dialogue, involvement and dedication of all segments of society, by exchanging knowledge and experience, Montenegro will concretely contribute to the accomplishment of our common goals. Thank you for your attention.